What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So about that Switch Pro reveal yesterday, look, I know there's a lot of disappointment online after nothing happened, but as we've been saying with the Switch Pro over the last 3 years, there's always next week. Anyway, we have a bunch of stuff to go over here today, which includes Nintendo teasing a series maybe heading to the Switch through a recent survey. And we're also going to talk about the full E3 schedule that's now been officially revealed, as well as a couple of leaks around E3 that involves 2K and Marvel. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with Square Enix and Yuji Naka. Now, we know Yuji Naka, of course, put out Balan Wonderworld. It didn't do the best with critics. We saw some pretty low Metacritic scores. It was in like the high 40s or the mid 50s, depending on what system you looked at. And I mean, the running joke from users was to leave it good scores, right? But it does look like, unfortunately, we can see this on Twitter, that Yuji Naka is no longer with Square Enix. This is spotted by Nintendo saying Yuji Naka, writer and director on Balan Wonderworld, is apparently no longer employed at Square Enix, where they say they worked at Square Enix now, and it looks like that was in April. So there's a few things here. One, I mean, it could have just been a deal where, hey, once this game is out, the contract is up, and then we'll kind of see how it does from there. And if we want to do a sequel or another game, we'll bring you back on. But Balan Wonderworld, not a surprise that maybe Square doesn't call Yuji Naka back to do another Balan Wonderworld or even another game at this point. It underperformed badly. I mean, the game came out with the demo and a lot of people immediately were like, what is this? But then when it comes out and it doesn't even chart like anywhere on those sales charts, yeah, I can't imagine it even broke even. So unfortunately, it looks like Yuji Naka and Square no longer working together. Also, we have a bit of an update to the cross-gen story between the PlayStation 5 and the PlayStation 4 and the way Sony presented Gran Turismo 7. Remember, in that trailer, they said PlayStation 5 exclusive, and it seemed really strange considering now they're talking about it also going to the PlayStation 4, which would not make it a PlayStation 5 exclusive. Well, according to VGC, this was a decision that was made kind of recently. You can head over here. This was an article that they posted up saying Gran Turismo 7, after all, was outright advertised as a PS5 exclusive in December. Although, to be fair to Sony, I understand the decision to release a PS4 version was made only fairly recently. So, all right, this is a weird situation, because originally it sounded like Gran Turismo 7 was going to come out this year, and then they said, okay, yeah, second half of 2021, and then they're like, oh yeah, it's not coming out this year, and then we hear, oh wait, it's also going to the PlayStation 4, and if they decided through development, oh, we're also going to try to get this on the PS4, guys, Polyphony has a hard time just getting these games out on time for one platform, and now we're throwing the PS4 into the mix here. That doesn't seem like a great idea. Now, again, this is kind of a report from VGC. We don't necessarily know how anything worked out in development behind the scenes, or even if this is correct, but it would at least explain why they advertised it as a PlayStation 5 exclusive in December and then kind of change their tune now. Would they really do that with Polyphony? Because this game might not come out until 2023 with the way they work. Oh, and we have Final Fantasy VII Intergrade coming out here in a couple of days, and a lot of people were wondering, okay, when are we going to be able to transfer save data, or how are we going to go about that? Because it's not as straightforward with the PlayStation as it is with the Xbox and Smart Delivery. Remember what happened with Marvel's Avengers? That was a whole thing to get your save data over to the newer upgraded PlayStation 5 version, but we can see this on Push Square saying Final Fantasy VII Remake patch 1.02 released lets you transfer save data to Intergrade on PS5. And the process basically entails you going to an option in the main menu and you upload your save from the regular Final Fantasy VII game that you have now, Remake, and then they're gonna have Intergrade come out. You then download it in the Intergrade menu. So you upload from one system, like your PS4, and then you download on your PS5. Sounds kind of straightforward, right? But what if you're playing the game on your PS5? Well, apparently you have to have both versions of the game installed. You upload from the regular one, and then you download it on the Intergrade version of the game on the same system. It's a very odd thing that the PS5, I guess, with these updated games, can't see that save game on your system. You have to send to the cloud, then grab it, and unfortunately both versions will have to be installed on a system that already has limited space as it is. And guys, just some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with this game series that Nintendo teased in a survey that started making the rounds online. We can head over here. This was tweeted out by Andrew Beta64. That's a very specific question about WarioWare Nintendo. And in this question for this survey, it says, at a price of $49.99, how interested are you in buying the next game in the WarioWare series? WarioWare is a game series starring Wario that features a collection of fast-paced micro games, each lasting about 3 to 5 seconds. And I mean, you can see the answers range mostly from the definitely would buy all the way down to the definitely would not buy. And it's not strange for companies to ask in surveys about things they might not necessarily have planned out right now, but could be thinking about in the future. And it's funny to me to look at this and say, are they really asking if people would pay $50 for WarioWare after they charge $50 for 1-2 Switch? Even $50 for Miitopia. I'm sure people are having fun with Miitopia, but some of these games that Nintendo brings over to the Switch are priced higher than they originally were on other platforms, like Tropical Freeze, just another example. Great game, but they charged more on the Switch. It's strange that they stopped and they were like, we might have to run a survey on WarioWare to see if people would really spend $50 on this game. I mean, really, if you think about it, it makes sense with the Switch. I mean, the Switch has a ton of functionality around the Joy-Con. You could probably do all kinds of cool stuff with WarioWare, and I almost wonder if they would also work to have maybe a handheld-only mode where it would incorporate like the Switch Lite in, where you'd use the touch screen with any of these different micro games. But the way I'm looking at it is Nintendo's realizing, okay, well, the Switch Lite would be limited because it doesn't have a Joy-Con, right? You have to get a Joy-Con, sync it up, I guess, then put the Switch Lite down somewhere. Or that's sort of the thing they're running into with these kind of games. Remember, they ran the same thing with something like Mario Party, right? Where you needed the Joy-Con and stuff. So that's kind of the way I'm thinking about this, is they're checking to see if there is interest, specifically because they would have to figure out how this game would work with not only the Switch Lite, but the Switch in dock mode and then in handheld mode. There probably is a lot that goes into getting something like a WarioWare game done. But remember, we had it on the 3DS a couple of years ago. It was on the Wii U, so it does make sense for them to eventually get WarioWare out on the Switch. Maybe they really are just trying to gauge how much it's worth to fans who have a Switch now, or just owners in general who maybe have never played this series. Either way, though, I think it's a great idea to bring WarioWare to the Switch. Why not? I mean, the Switch in general has been selling basically every first-party game Nintendo brings to the platform, so why not take a shot with WarioWare and see how that does? Next up, let's talk about E3 2021. We are a little over a week away from it kicking off, and obviously we're gonna have games flying all over the place with announcements and trailers and gameplay, but we at least have a good look now at the official schedule that was released yesterday. We can head over here. This was on Twitter, where E3's Twitter account put out a couple of images, just kind of bullet points almost of the schedule, because they didn't seem to necessarily have times for all of the different publishers and developers that would be presenting. According to E3, they were going to let, I guess, all of these different publishers and developers kind of announce times on their own as they figure things out. It does kind of seem a bit last minute for some of this stuff. Anyway, at the top here, Saturday, June 12th, they'll have a broadcast pre-show, which starts at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. This will be kicking off with press conferences from Ubisoft and Gearbox Entertainment, as well as a session with GamesBeat. Now, Ubisoft put out their own kind of description as to what's going to be there. A lot of the talk was about games that are coming out here pretty soon, or even are already out. I mean, they did mention like Rainbow Six Quarantine, Riders Republic, and they mentioned Far Cry 6. I guess they might sit down and at least show more gameplay of that. They did say there would be several surprises here, but for the most part, it appears that they're going to have some large sections dedicated to games that we already know about. So keep that in mind with Ubisoft with those expectations. And then Sunday, June 13th, the broadcast pre-show starts 11:45 a.m. Eastern Time, followed up by the Xbox and Bethesda Games Showcase that will take place 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Fans can also look forward to special presentations from Square Enix, the PC Gaming Show, and the Future Games Show. Warner Bros. Games and Back 4 Blood and 24 Entertainment will also be featured. Square did put out a press release kind of detailing some of their plans for this event. It'll be a 40-minute presentation, a world premiere of a new game from Eidos Montreal. Some were talking about this being something from the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise, so keep that in mind. An exciting update on Babylon's Fall. If you remember that game, it'd be good to see that again. Details about Marvel's Avengers expansion Black Panther, War for Wakanda, and updates on upcoming in-game events, and a deep dive on Life is Strange True Colors, and a first look at Life is Strange Remastered Collection, and they do also mention several big surprises that should get fans excited. Moving to Monday, June 14th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, they'll have their broadcast pre-show starting, alongside press conferences from several indie developers, which we did see Devolver Digital tweet out that just kind of the date, June 12th, with an image that appears to show them prepping their own interesting, we'll say, presentation. But they say presentations from Take-Two Interactive, Mythical Games, Freedom Games, Razer, and Capcom will take place throughout the day. Verizon and Television will also be featured along with a session with Venn. So I'm very interested in Capcom to see what they have for us, as well as Take-Two Interactive, because that's where 2K would be, which we'll get into some of those interesting E3 leaks here next. But then we have Tuesday, June 15th. We have the broadcast pre-show starting up 11 a.m. Eastern Time. The last day of E3 will include Nintendo Direct and Treehouse. That will start 12 p.m. Eastern Time. Bandai Namco, Eureka Games, and GameSpot will also have a focused event. The broadcast will round out with the official E3 2021 awards show. And there we have it, a rough schedule for now for E3 2021. I say rough because we don't have the times for some of those presentations like Capcom or Take-Two and so on. But as we get closer, I'm sure we'll find those out. I will be live streaming most of E3. I'm not touching Ubisoft's event at all. Every time I live stream that event, they copyright strike the channel, and you can't live stream for days sometimes because you have to wait for Ubisoft to get that strike off there. So I'm just going to avoid it completely this year. But ones for Square, Capcom, Microsoft, Nintendo, Take-Two, yes, I should be live streaming pretty much all of those, and I'm really looking forward to some big-time game reveals and a lot of excitement since E3 is back, and, it feels pretty good. Next up, let's talk about an E3 leak around 2K and Take-Two that appears to be picking up some steam online because it's actually being vetted by several people, one of which being Jason Schreier and another one being VGC, who says that according to their own sources, there's a lot of validity to this leak. And there was one thing in there in particular that I looked at and said, that would actually be kind of interesting to see how that would turn out. Anyway, let's head over here. This just posted up on Reddit. They have like a gaming leaks and rumors section. But we can see a couple of bullet points here. NBA 2K22, where they say Dirk Nowitzki will be this year's cover athlete. And then we have Wonderland, which is codenamed Daffodil. It's a Borderlands spin-off title featuring Tiny Tina. Interesting. They say the final name could be Tiny Tina's Wonderland. So there you go for any Borderlands fans there. Then we have a new Fire Axis game that's codenamed Coda, new turn-based action game using Marvel properties. Source described it as XCOM with Marvel heroes. Seems like some famous actors are voicing the characters. And then we have Codename Volt, which is a new action game, seems to be in really early development. Logo looks similar to the Fallout logo. No final name yet. Source described it as Cthulhu meets Saints Row. Game looked pretty unfinished in the trailer. Sadly, my source didn't know which studio is developing this title. And it goes on a bit further here to talk about not be able to verify any of this necessarily, grain of salt, all of that. But it seemed that Jason Schreier was like, yeah, I mean, I was seeing if anyone would notice this leak, and then VGC picked it up, saying that their source is able to corroborate several parts of this, and the biggest one being Marvel and XCOM. That's an interesting idea, using Marvel heroes in kind of that real-time strategy style game, kind of, right? Turn-based real-time strategy. That, I'm curious, because, I mean, remember when we heard about there being an XCOM-like Mario game, and we were like, oh, that sounds weird. I don't know if that'll work, but it did. I really like the idea of an XCOM-like Marvel game. That could be really interesting to see how that turns out. Now, it's very important to note here, Jason did mention that just because these are out here doesn't necessarily mean they would all be at an E3 presentation with 2K and Take-Two, so keep that one in mind. But like I said, I'm very curious specifically about this XCOM Marvel game to see how it'll look, how it'll play, and even if it's coming out this year or if it's something we can look forward to next. But let me know your thoughts on the idea of an XCOM and Marvel game. Is that something you would be interested in? And in our last bit of news, let's talk about some new details that have come out for Horizon Forbidden West. We just had that Q&A with PlayStation Blog and Herman Holst talking about Horizon Forbidden West and if it would make it in to 2021, where they seem like they're on track, but they don't want to guarantee anything just yet. But remember, this is a cross-gen title, and that has concerned people about if it will be held back. Well, some of the development details in here were pretty interesting. Let's head over here because Nebelian actually did a very good job kind of summarizing a lot of this stuff based on the video that Game Informer put out, which I will also link down below in the sources, saying that there's a new free climbing system. We kind of saw some of that in the demo that was shown, where they scanned and they saw all like the little yellow spots you could grab, full 3D audio and DualSense support, which is, again, important to kind of make it feel next gen. As I've seen with Returnal, it does quite a bit. Completely overhauled skill tree, new melee system with combos. Melee in the Horizon Zero Dawn was a sticking point for a lot of people, something that was pointed out. Many different biomes, new workbench system for upgrades, and the development, as they said in that Q&A, is on track, but they were very careful not to promise anything when it comes to 2021 release. Going a bit further here into Horizon's development, a lot of the game has been developed on PS4 and is still being playtested on PS4. PS5 version has a different water rendering technique than PS4 Plus, more details there. And we did see, that was one of the biggest things that people pointed out, was the overall water. Like, people were blown away with how that looks. So I guess if you want really good looking water, you're going to want to play it on the PS5. And there was one really big point that I noticed. There will be a 60 FPS mode, and a lot of people saw that the trailer was 30 FPS. It trended on Twitter even, 30 FPS. There will be a performance mode as well as a quality mode from what they were saying, which is awesome. I'm very happy to hear that. I figured there would be a 60 FPS mode, mostly because, yeah, a lot of development was on PS4 and they're moving it up to the PS5. So you would expect the PS5 to be able to handle that game pretty well. And with that, they would have this path for a 60 FPS mode. And that's the mode I would be playing this game in completely. But so far, so good for Horizon Forbidden West from what they've shown in that demo trailer with the gameplay and what they've talked about here with all these extra details. It's sounding like the game is coming along pretty well, and I'm very excited to check it out. Hopefully, they're able to get it into 2021, as they're still unsure about that, but we'll keep an eye on the release date situation as we go along towards the end of the year. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, will Bayonetta 3 be at Nintendo's E3 Direct? Confidence has wavered on Bayonetta 3, it appears. 65% said no. It won't be at their show. And I just want to remind everyone, this was announced in 2017, the first year of the Switch at the Game Awards. If it's not released by the end of this year, that means it'll have been 4 years still, like, since its announcement. And what if they don't even have anything to show? That'd be 4 years since Nintendo last acknowledged that this game exists. It's very strange what's going on with Bayonetta 3. I'd like to hope that this means they're just getting extra time to work on the game and that there weren't issues in development, but we'll see. Hey, at least we have like a week and we'll, I guess, find out if Nintendo has anything to say about this game at E3. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from GM saying, imagine if PS5's holiday titles are only Ghostwire Tokyo and Deathloop. That's actually kind of a funny situation to be in, because since ZeniMax and Bethesda are owned by Microsoft, that means Microsoft will be releasing those two games on the PlayStation. And then they potentially also be releasing, say, Halo on the Xbox, as well as Forza Horizon 5 on the Xbox. So they'd be holding up 2 releases on the Xbox and 2 releases on the PlayStation. Microsoft will pretty much be holding up like the entire holiday for 2021 if Horizon Forbidden West falls into 2022. What a weird situation in gaming that would be. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, it really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. There's WarioWare on the Switch. Would you pay $50 for that? Are you excited to hear that there's potential and Nintendo's at least exploring the idea of it? Let me know about that one. And then also, what about E3? The schedule is now out there. Is the E3 hype starting to take hold since we're about a week away? Thanks guys for watching. Have a great weekend. I'll see you back here Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time for Newswave.